think will happen now?
It is going to be few weeks of uncertainty, but at the end, the people of Iran are making a choice. They want King Reza Pahlavi. We want our king to come back.
47 years after it seized power from Iran's monarchy, the nation's religious dictatorship is so firmly entrenched that toppling it will be more complex than simply killing its leader. But regime change is now one of Donald Trump's stated ambitions.
I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you.
You know, there's a big difference between what you hope to achieve and what you have to achieve. Does he hope for a regime change? Sure. But I think what he has to achieve is a better nuclear deal, a nuclear-free Iran, and also wiping out, eradicating its offensive missile capabilities.
The antagonism goes back decades, since Islamic students stormed the US embassy in Tehran in 1979, taking dozens of hostages, many of whom were held for over a year. And in 1983, 241 Americans were killed in the bombing of a Marine barracks in Beirut by an Iran-backed militia. The chants of death to America have always been much more than rhetoric. The hatred is inspired by America's support for the real enemy, Israel, Iran's past and forever target.
The last 24 hours were historic days. Difficult because we were with the kids in the shelter, going in and out. You hear the sirens and you hear the bombs too.
On the streets of Tel Aviv, there's hope this may be the regime's last gasp.
This is a huge step on the way of eliminating this terror regime that's been sending missiles and bomb attacks and everything on Israel for the last decade.
Nadav Straukler is a former advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu. He says the Prime Minister has been working towards this week for his entire career.
The greatest danger is the possibility that this Islamic Republic, Iran, will acquire nuclear weapons.
This is his life mission. It was the most important and crucial decision of his life, and this is a leader that here for so many years. But this is his biggest decision to eliminate Khamenei, his worst enemy.
Iranian missiles and drones are now falling across the Middle East, in Dubai, Qatar, and at a US military base in Bahrain, where former naval officer Jennifer Parker was embedded with the US Fifth Fleet in 2023.
As a military planner, I would say they are fighting for survival, hitting the bases across the Gulf countries, or at least attempting to hit the bases across the Gulf countries, and the impact that has on their relations with some of these countries to which they are moderately friendly with shows that they are showing desperation rather than a calculated strategic response.
I think the question of will this be a regional war, it is a regional war. And the regional war started on October 7th. The Middle East has changed. Will it be for good? It very rarely is.
The demise of the leader doesn't mean a regime change or the change of the political system in Iran. No, we have a very well-established political system. We have a very rich constitution.
For Israelis, the fear was always fighting wars on multiple fronts against Iran and its allies. But 2 years of Israeli strikes on Hamas, Hezbollah, and last June, Iran, have redrawn those battle lines.
When you thought about this kind of war a few years ago, then you thought about rain of missiles from everywhere, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Gaza.
The greatest threat posed by the isolated, wounded regime may be towards its own people. After protests earlier this year, thousands of Iranians were reported killed by authorities.
We are witnessing history.
For Iranians abroad, these are sleepless nights.
At 3 a.m., following every bit of news, asleep for 3 hours, my partner tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Dictator is dead." And we cried together. We couldn't believe this moment. Regime is still there. We are just hoping that this is the end. The heads of a snake is gone.
Like many exiles, Fashid Kerolapur and Rose Narimani believe the US and Israel have provided Iranians with the chance to take back their country.
It's not going to be easy, we know that. The ideology is still there, but I believe now people have more hope. They are just so hopeful. We are getting close, we are getting there.
The US-Israeli attack has put the federal government in a difficult position, balancing loyalty to its close ally, the United States, with preserving the traditional rules-based order. In a moment, we'll speak to the Prime Minister. First, here's 730's political editor, Jacob Grieber.
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and call every single senator. You are being disrespectful towards me.
A new war had tempers running hot, with the Senate clashing over whether to explicitly endorse the US and Israeli assault on Iran.
For drawing a line against nuclear proliferation and regional destabilisation, the coalition is grateful. Grateful for the decisive action that was taken before a nuclear threshold was crossed.
At the weekend, the government said it supported the US action. But a motion today that would have congratulated the governments of Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump and welcomed the death of the Ayatollah was a bridge too far.
What used to be a party of government is interested only in political stunts in this chamber, playing politics on a motion on a conflict where Iran continues to attack the region, where people are dying, Australians are stranded, and the government is working to respond. Order! That is what is happening here.
Beyond the Senate machinations, the government is trying to avoid getting caught between the coalition demanding a more fulsome affirmation of what is unfolding in Iran and criticism from the left.
When Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu began their latest illegal war in the Middle East, their latest illegal attack on Iran, it was the Albanese Labor government that rushed to be the first country in the world to give them some political support and to endorse the attacks.
As always, conflict in the Middle East is throwing up the thorniest of tests. As an avowed middle power that continues to profess support for the crumbling rules-based order, Australia's government is naturally reluctant to openly embrace the killing of a head of state, no matter how despised that regime might be. But it's also steering clear of having an argument with the Trump administration over the nuances of international law.
Ultimately, these strikes are a matter for the United States and Israel to explain. No one mourns the death of the Supreme Leader.
For now, the government is holding to a tight script.
What's fundamentally important here is that Iran is prevented from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
While insisting Australia is not involved, at least not directly.
Did we provide any practical support, including the use of US facilities on Australian soil, joint facilities?
No.
Were we asked to?
No, I mean, we weren't advised of this before it happened.
Miles's emphatic denial of practical support is likely to receive further scrutiny, particularly if the conflict drags on. Joint facilities such as Pine Gap are an important feature of global surveillance and intelligence gathering. The other political risk is that a new war sets off another inflation wave triggered by disruptions to oil and gas shipments. A cost of living hit Australians can ill afford.
There's no doubt that one of the initial direct impacts on the Australian people might be at the Bowser.
The Prime Minister joined me earlier. Prime Minister, welcome to 7:30.
Good to be with you, Sarah.
This was an overwhelming show of US force. Is there no concern in your government that there seem to be no legal checks to US power under President Trump?
Well, what we have here is the Iranians have shown over the last 3 days why they remain a threat to peace and stability in the region. We've seen even in recent hours attacks on a British base in Cyprus, on French forces stationed in Abu Dhabi, and on the Gulf states right across the board, a seemingly endless series of attacks, including in residential areas, in areas that are frequented by tourists in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Qatar. And I think that this is a regime which has engaged in international terrorism support, including, of course, here in Australia, with the at least 2 anti-Semitic attacks, including the financing and promotion of the attack on the Adass synagogue in Melbourne.
That is powerful motivation, but I want to be absolutely clear about this. What is the legal basis for this attack?
Well, that's a matter for the United States, based upon we don't have access to the intelligence that the United States and Israel had prior to the launch of these attacks. No doubt this has now occurred. Quite clearly, what we've seen with the recent joint statement of the United Kingdom, France and Germany, a concern about the escalation of these attacks by Iran on the region, including by parties which were certainly not part of this action on Iran.
Now, in January, President Trump was asked if there were any limits at all on his global power. He said, yeah, there's one thing, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. Is that a check on the use of US power that your government is comfortable with?
Well, what we are supportive of is the US making a decision about stopping Iran getting nuclear weapons, and also about stopping the role that Iran has played in undermining peace and security in the region. They have been bad actors for a long period of time now, for 37 years, under a regime that not only has attacked the region, but importantly as well has attacked its own people, with tens of thousands of deaths in recent period for people expressing their basic and fundamental human rights. This is a regime and a leader in the Ayatollah Khamenei who will not be mourned because his record is one of inciting violence and instability at a time where what we need in the world is more peace and security. And whilst the Iranian regime continue to engage in the aggressive activity that they have, including, of course, here in Australia, which is why Australia took the very strong action, the first expulsion of an ambassador since the Second World War, as a result of the evidence which we clearly had of the direct involvement of the IRGC in attacks on Australian soil. Now, Iran's position quite clearly has not been just defensive, they have been offensive and have engaged in these attacks on foreign soil for a long period of time now, including on a nation a long way away from Iran here in Australia.
So for you, that combination of events justifies the assassination of Iran's top leadership?
Well, he will not be mourned.
It's not the question, if I may, Prime Minister. You'd said that before. Does it justify the assassination?
Well, Australia has had a clear position of supporting this action, and Australia has had a position of abhorrence when it comes to the Iranian regime. And it is up to, of course, the Iranian people now to determine their own future. We hope that what emerges is a more democratic and free Iran. Iran, of course, has such an extraordinary history, and people have shown incredible courage and bravery. This will be a difficult time, including for Iranian Australians who will have relatives and friends in Iran. But the community here in Australia is certainly supportive of a change and of human rights, because one of the reasons why so many people have fled essentially to other countries is because of the nature of that regime.
Does your government want to see the entire Iranian regime replaced, both the Ayatollahs and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard?
We've declared the IRGC as a terrorist organisation of the state, and they've engaged in state-sponsored terrorism. So, of course, I want to see their power removed, because their power has been used not just for international acts, but of course to oppress their own people. But of course the future of Iran lays with its own people, and we of course stand with the people of Iran in fighting for their democratic rights, their freedom and their basic human rights that they've been denied.
You said no one will mourn the Ayatollah, but there are reports this afternoon that at least 4 Shiite institutions in Australia have either published obituaries of him or are going to hold memorials to him. Should those materials be withdrawn? Should those memorials go ahead?
Look, we have a clear position as the Australian government, and I think overwhelmingly Australians will have that position. We in this country have a different approach to people having different views from a totalitarian regime such as Iran. But our position is very clear, and I'm sure that is shared by the overwhelming majority of Australians, including the overwhelming number of Australians of Iranian descent.
These are tricky areas, I understand, but I just want to be clear about that. Do you think that memorials for the death of the Ayatollah Khamenei should go ahead in Australia or not?
Well, I don't think they're appropriate, and certainly I think that overwhelmingly people won't be participating. Overwhelmingly, what Australians want is, and the Australian Covenant, no matter where people are from, is that if they have any hatred or prejudice, it's left at the Customs Hall. That's the Australian Covenant of people who come here, because we are a country that believes in human rights, that believes in democracy, that believes in freedom, and we, of course, want to see that right around the world. It is up to the people of Iran now to determine their future, and over coming days and weeks and the period ahead, we await what comes.
President Trump has said that this could go on for 4 weeks, is the figure that he used. Would you agree to Australian intelligence assets or military assets being used in the weeks ahead?
Well, I certainly don't talk about Australian intelligence issues on 7:30 or anywhere else. There's been no request, and I don't expect any request for Australian military assets to be involved. It's a long way from Australia, and Australia is not, we are not big players in the Middle East.
Prime Minister, it's a serious day, it's a serious interview, but it would be remiss of me not to mention that today is your 30th anniversary since you entered Parliament. Congratulations, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and I got elected on my birthday too, so it was quite a day 30 years ago. But it's a great honour and privilege every single day that I've been the member for Grayndler, and no better honour than being Prime Minister of the best country on earth.
Thank you, and happy birthday.
Thanks very much, Sarah.
Israel's new ambassador to Australia, Hillel Newman, joined me earlier. Ambassador Newman, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you, Sarah. It's my pleasure to be here, and it's my pleasure to be in Australia. I just arrived a week ago. I'm still jet-lagged.
The Prime Minister said that Australia had not seen any of the intelligence that supported the decision to attack Iran and assassinate its leader. What obligation does Israel have to justify its actions outside of the Oval Office?
There is tremendous justification. Iran has been a brutal rogue regime that has called death to America, death to Israel, and acted upon this call for the past few decades since it was re-established, since the Islamic Revolution in 1979. It has acted in many ways to try and annihilate the State of Israel and kill as many people as possible. And this is an armed conflict which is going on for decades since Iran declared itself that it's an enemy of Israel. You know, Israel had wonderful relations with Iran before the Islamic Revolution. And overnight, the Islamic Revolution took place, and then they declared that Israel is their enemy and started working against Israel in the West. You know, the big Satan is America and the small Satan is Israel. So they're working in many ways to instruct terror against Israelis, against Americans, destabilize the entire region. There's a comprehensive issue of Iran. It's not only terror, it's not only destabilizing the Middle East, it's also the nuclear issue, the ballistic missiles, which they've launched against Israel many times. So we've been under attack, and we're now acting in self-defense. There's full justification for this act.
Was there, as President Trump put it, an imminent threat?
Yes, we acted in order to remove two existential threats. The first one is the nuclear issue, and the second one are the ballistic missiles. You know, some people think that ballistic missiles, well, it's not that much of an existential threat, but it is, because Iran was planning to build a stockpile of thousands of ballistic missiles and then launch them at one go. It's very difficult for a country to survive such an attack. So there was a long-term existential threat, which was getting shorter and shorter in terms. Since Midnight Hammer operation, we knew through intelligence they intended to enhance and deepen their capabilities in the nuclear field and in the ballistic missile field. And they intended also to dig it deep so that they will be immune from attack in the future. These two developments made it a time-sensitive issue. If we also take into consideration the fact that the people were at last rising against the oppression of the regime, this was a timely aspect, and we felt it is a momentum to act now.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said in his address, "We'll create conditions that will allow the brave Iranian people to cast off the yoke of this murderous regime." That sounds like driving regime change.
Yes, but if you note his words, what he's saying is that it's up to the people of Iran to do the regime change. Not Israel nor America should actually decide for the people of Iran who their leader is. So we're creating the conditions, that is true. We're perhaps laying the foundation, but it's up to the people of Iran to lead the way.
Do you have a preferred candidate to take over?
No, we don't name leaders. It's up to the Iranian people. We really think that it's up to the Iranian people to decide their fate. We just hope and pray that the Iranian people will have it in their capability to choose a leader that will lead them towards moderacy, towards a sane approach. So we hope that they will choose a leader who is part of the moderate camp that comes to terms with Israel as well.
If there is a new leader appointed who is from the cohort of Ayatollahs, similar to Ayatollah Khamenei, would Israel assassinate another Ayatollah?
I can't tell you exactly what we're going to do tomorrow morning. This is quite theoretical. We just hope that it won't happen, that we won't find a leader who's just a copy of Ayatollah, because the people of Iran need their freedom, and the people of Iran have proven time and time again that they don't want such a leadership. Such a leadership is just the oppression of the people. So part of this whole campaign is also to bring freedom to the people of Iran. So there's no point of them appointing another leader who oppresses them. So we hope that the people of Iran will choose a different path which leads towards coexistence and living together in peace and harmony.
Just one comment on what the Prime Minister said in his interview. He said that memorials in Australia for the Ayatollah are inappropriate. Should he stop them from going ahead?
I leave domestic politics up to him and how to handle it. I just want to say that I commend the Australian government for the principled stand that they have taken. They've decided to be on the right side of history, supporting the United States and Israel by reference in this issue of Iran. They're 100% correct in the fact that at this operation against Iran is supposed to remove an existential threat like the nuclear and also bring freedom to the people. Those are the objectives, and they will be served, we hope. On that aspect, we also salute the government of Australia for taking that principled stand with Israel and the United States.
President Trump is now talking about this attack going on for 4 weeks. Can Israel maintain ballistic and other attacks against Iran for 4 more weeks?
Well, as you know, it's not only Israel that is under attack, but the entire Middle East, you could say. Iran has attacked 6, 7 different countries in the Gulf and in the Middle East in general. They've attacked Kuwait and Oman and Bahrain and UAE. They've attacked widely. In fact, one of the UAE officials of the parliament, El Nuaimi, was interviewed, and he said this just shows how justified the attack is against Iran, because they hit out indiscriminately against civilians. A big distinction is also that Iran hits at civilians. The operation by the United States and Israel, the joint operation, is very pinpointed, very careful, and hits only at military or leadership targets. So there's a very big distinction.
Let me just come in there. But of course, there was an attack that ended up striking a school. That doesn't sound so pinpointed.
That school was actually used by IRGC and other forces. You never know what's actually happening in Iran because there's no transparency. They don't share the truth. They spread dogma and slogans, and it takes a while for you to know the truth. But let's say our sources are that spot was actually not used at the time as a school, but more as an IRGC and a governmental building. We cannot clarify this until we have what we call accountable information.
Ambassador Newman, thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Operation Midnight Hammer that the ambassador just mentioned was last year's attack on nuclear facilities in Iran by both US and Israeli forces, aimed at destroying Iran's nuclear capability. 8 months on, just how close is Iran to building a nuclear weapon? Jason Om explains.
They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore.
In his 8-minute video announcing Operation Epic Fury, the US President Donald Trump justified his actions by saying Iran was attempting to rebuild its nuclear program.
It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon.
World leaders have been concerned about Iran's nuclear program for decades.
Iran was dangerous. Iran is dangerous.
Is the most urgent proliferation challenge that the world faces today.
It's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
But what is Iran's nuclear capability today? Let's go back to January 2002. Then US President George W. Bush declared Iran an enemy along with North Korea and Iraq.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
Later that same year, secret nuclear facilities in Iran were exposed to the world, prompting an investigation by the nuclear watchdog the IAEA. It found Iran to be non-compliant with its obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. In June last year, the IAEA found Iran to be again non-compliant, and President Trump ordered strikes on key nuclear facilities in Iran under Operation Midnight Hammer. President Trump claimed the facilities were destroyed.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
That claim came into question amid reports of a US intelligence assessment which found the strikes did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months. There were also contradictions around the justification for the strikes. 3 months earlier, the US Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified in Congress.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Which brings us back to the current war. In the lead up to the weekend strikes, the US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff claimed Iran was very close to producing weapons material.
It's up to 60%. They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material.
But the IAEA hasn't been able to verify what's been happening on the ground in Iran. That's because Iran barred the watchdog from inspecting its nuclear enrichment sites since the attacks of June last year. Nevertheless, the head of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, acknowledged that Iran's activities were a problem.
No quiere decir esto que haya armas nucleares en este momento, pero está ese material que puede tener ese uso.
Based on what it already knew, the IAEA estimated that Iran had enough material that, if enriched further, could be enough for 10 nuclear weapons. Before the US-Israeli strikes, Iran and the US were holding a third round of indirect talks. The mediator, Oman's foreign minister, claimed that Iran had agreed to reduce its stockpiles of nuclear material.
The peace deal is within our reach.
A peace deal?
Yes, is within our reach if we just allow diplomacy the space it needs to get there.
Precisely how close Iran was to making a nuclear weapon is contested. But what's clear is that the US and Israel decided Iran was enough of a threat to start a war.